I'm Stephen Michael Smith. I'm music director here at the Unitarian Universalist Congregation at Shelter Rock in Manhasset, New York. In 2 days, we start our first rehearsal on the monumental Bruckner 7th Symphony right here at Shelter Rock. And joining me today is Jessica Lombardo and David Stevens. Stevens, yes?
Yes, Stevens.
They are both principal players in this concert, and thank you for being here today.
Thank you so much for having us.
So each year we do a big concert in the summer, and in choosing the repertoire, I use a variety of things that I think about, and the Bruckner's been on my list for a long time, but I would say it wasn't really high on the list because it's such a major work, number one, and there was the issue of the instrumentation. And so I've kind of put it off, and then last summer, David and his cohorts were part of our Mahler Das Lied, and we had such a great horn section that I contacted you, I think in the fall, saying, what do you want to do?
Sure.
Is there something that's of interest to you? And the 7th just kind of popped out. You remember that conversation?
Yes, absolutely.
Have you played it before? What's your interest in this
I've not.
piece?
I listened to it a few times, and growing up in the shadows of the Chicago Symphony in suburban Illinois, Chicago, I would, always listen to the Schulte and Chicago recordings of the Bruckners and the Mahlers, where it's, horns and brass. That's what they were famous for. So I just had it in a passing way, but other than that, Bruckner kind of never got to me in my life until now, actually.
Well, I'll say one thing that put me over is, and why this was on the list, is that many people say this is a statement of faith. And we are a faith community, so I try to explore different perspectives. And so that was one way I could justify doing Bruckner
Sure.
in a Unitarian church. But I meant that seriously, because the more research I did and the more listening that I've done, it really is such an extraordinary journey. And then we'll talk about this later, but as you well know, Bruckner adored Wagner almost to the point of being obsessive. Mm-hmm. And he was in the midst of writing this piece, and he heard that Wagner was dying, and so that really influenced his writing of this symphony. And we'll go deeper into that. Mm-hmm. So that made sense to me because being this statement of faith, and also as time has worked out, which is kind of interesting, we right now as a community have had a great many losses of longtime members, and we just lost our lead minister, and we lost a former senior minister here. And even though I planned this in the fall, it just seems an extraordinary time for us to be able to experience this piece, because this is such a statement or a reflection of loss and of process. So Jessica, welcome to Shelter Rock.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thrilled to have you here.
Yeah.
So what's your relationship with Bruckner and the 7th? Have you played it before?
I have played it before. Yeah, I played it about 10 years ago with a group in New York City, and I played principal Wagner tuba. And that wasn't my first time playing the Wagner tuba, but it was my first time really playing it on this type of scale. I had studied it in school, and at the time when I was in college, I was studying partially with Eric Rowski, who's the principal horn of the Metropolitan Opera. So we had studio class, and he came in one day and he was like, we're gonna learn the Wagner tuba. Because it's something that as a horn player, you need to learn how to do. So we practiced a lot of repertoire with it, but I had never performed on the Wagner tuba before until Bruckner 7. And I kind of, a lot of horn players have a very love-hate, more on the hate side.
Yeah. So tell us, what is the Wagner tuba? What is that?
Yeah. So do you want me to?
Sure.
Kind of,
It's a very out-of-tune instrument is what it is.
It's a very out of tune. Say why it's out of tune.
That's the hate part of the love-hate, is
Yes.
that in its design to get the sound that Wagner wanted, there are some sacrifices made in other areas, I'm assuming, and then just certain notes just lay differently, and they're all different on every single. These are the snowflakes of brass instruments.
Yeah, and we don't have the luxury of using our hand in the bell to manipulate the pitch.
Right,
The Wagner tuba was invented by Richard Wagner while he was composing the Ring Cycle in 1853. So he just started composing Das Rheingold, which is the first opera in the Ring Cycle of the 4 operas. And he wanted a sound. He wanted a sound that sounded Nordic because the Ring Cycle is based on Nordic mythology. So he was inspired by this Bronze Age ancient instrument called the Scandinavian lyre. And the lyre, it was used, in ancient times during war times and battles to frighten the enemy. It has a very dark, ominous sound. And
Was it tubular like this? Do you
yeah,
know?
so basically, it kind of looks like a sousaphone. The mouthpiece here starts here, and it kind of wraps around the body, and the bell comes out behind the player's head. It's very tall. When we were studying history of the horn in college, I remember my friends were like, "Oh, that looks like that's the shower horn," because it kind of looks like a shower head. It has like these nodules around it.
And the sousaphone is, for us who aren't necessarily as familiar of instruments, that's the thing we see in the back of the marching band.
Yeah, it's
the eye
and they're
on the
swinging
Ohio
back and
State.
forth and back and forth, right?
It's the tuba in the marching band that
Yeah.
wraps
Yeah, yeah,
around
yeah.
the
Great.
body and the big bell. That's kind of the sound that that Richard Wagner was inspired by. And the horn has more of like a brighter sound, and the trombone was a little bit, he kind of wasn't sure. He wanted it to lean more towards a horn sound, and he wanted it to be an instrument that would be easily doubled by a French horn player. So he met with Adolphe Sax, who is the inventor of the saxophone. He was one of the major tuba manufacturers during the time. So he met with him, and he drew up a blueprint, and apparently Richard Wagner did not like it. And apparently they didn't really get along as people. So he was like, "Oh, I'm going to scratch this. This is too much like a regular tuba." He wanted something, that was, like I said, more French horn-like. So he met with a renowned horn player at the time named Max Richter, and they kind of, collaborated, and they were kind of brainstorming about the design of the Wagner tuba. And ultimately, it was manufactured by someone named Joseph, I think, it's a
I can't
very
remember.
German-sounding name.
But he was a
Ottensteiner.
protege of Sax, right?
Yes,
The guy who did it.
yes,
I
yes.
can't remember his name either, but yeah.
I think his last
yeah.
name is Ottensteiner.
That sounds right.
Yeah, and he was a notable instrument manufacturer at the time. He made woodwind instruments, and he did make French horns. And that's the funny thing is that Wagner didn't really get along with Sax, but the person who ended up making it used the same techniques that Adolphe Sax would have used anyway if he built it. But I guess it was more the design that he liked that Ottensteiner produced. And the funny thing too is that the Wagner tuba wasn't made until right before the premiere of Das Rheingold. So
It was really created for the Ring, correct?
he was composing the Ring Cycle, and he was composing for an instrument that didn't exist for many, many years. And the instruments that were substituting for this part, I think they were using military instruments at the time, and it was I think the horn players maybe had one rehearsal or something, and then it was the premiere of Das Rheingold that they were playing the Wagner
And
tuba.
is it true, I had read somewhere that he had a very particular sound that he wanted for Valhalla, and he couldn't, that's really what drove
It was
him.
the sound of the gods and Wotan. And
Exactly.
Yeah,
And so
yeah.
he couldn't get some sort of, he wanted the power, but he wanted a celestial sound at the same time, and he couldn't get that from...
He
Is that
wanted an
resonate?
instrument to specifically play the Valhalla motif.
Right.
So yeah, it's a pretty important instrument in the in the progression of opera and music, and so.
Now, we don't really see that or hear it unless we go to the opera and hear Wagner,
Or we
hear
ask someone to play
Bruckner,
it.
right? But that's,
Well, so yeah,
I
it
wonder
was
what
also.
what that Valhalla motif is. Don't you? Steve?
Yeah. It would be great to hear that.
do you think that could happen?
Yeah, I mean, it was also, so yeah, the Wagner tuba was also used in Parsifal and Tristan and Isolde. And yeah, I mean, I can also talk about how it translated to Bruckner using it, or how it translated to it being played in a symphonic setting.
Would you play just a little bit for us? It
Yeah,
could be just a couple
yeah.
notes, just so we
Yeah,
can,
yeah.
you might as well get it into the room.
Sure.
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 At this beautiful setting.
Yeah, so this is.
We're trying to do this technically so we don't have a big shadow on her
Yeah,
face.
ooh,
That's
right,
why
got
she's
that
moving
microphone
around.
right there. This is going to be great.
So that's just a major C scale, just to kind of hear the sound of it. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
I have a theory.
Okay.
Wagner grew up a Lutheran, and he was around organ music. He didn't particularly like organs necessarily, but he grew up and that was in his ear. And Bruckner's father was an organist, and Bruckner was a very famous organist. He was a touring organist. And he loved Bach, but he was completely disinterested in any other composers of the period. So he, as I said, he was a performer and he was a very active recitalist, but he would improvise all of his concerts. So the organ was really in his soul. And also was kind of in Wagner's soul. So I'm guessing this, I'm just saying it, and this is going public, so you can crucify me, folks. I think when he was thinking about celestial sounds, probably just because it was in his DNA, he might have thought about the sound of the organ. And we know that sound was in Bruckner's ears. And what's interesting as a conductor about this instrument is that, I'm going to first tell you about the organ and why I think how they relate. Organs are constructed such there's a fundamental sound. It's called a principal or it's a gedeckt, but it's an 8-foot sound. And that is the sound that's an organ sound. And now you all know there's lots of stops to pull. Well, almost anything you play, you have to have that foundational sound. And then you add stops to that foundational sounds. And what the stops do is they can change color, or they reinforce the harmonics. And that's what's important. They reinforce the harmonics. So if you have the foundation stops playing and you pull out other stops, it'll get louder, but you're reinforcing that basic sound, that basic fundamental sound. In the brass choir, prior to, in my opinion, prior to the Wagner tuba, there wasn't kind of that central core sound that I think these guys may have been listening for. All right, you've got the brassiness of the trumpets, you've got the French horns, which are kind of a mellow sound, you've got the trombones, which have a real bite to them, but there's not a core sound in the same way that there is in the organ. One reason I'm saying this is because all commentators say that the Bruckner sound, and particular Wagner sounds in cases, is an organ-like sound. So I'm trying to define why it sounds like an organ-like sound. And I think it's the Wagner tuba that creates that unique sound, particularly with Bruckner. Now, the hard part about this, for brass choirs, and one reason with the orchestra we're going to have to really work on this, when you add stops on the organ, you never cover that fundamental sound. And in the orchestra, when we play, the sound that leads the brass choir are the tubas, are the Wagner tubas. So, and everything, trumpets really don't enter into the sound as much. The French horns are the top part of the sound, and the trombones, for me, are the bass reinforcement of the harmonics of that instrument. So that instrument really changed the color of orchestral music, certainly for Bruckner. We'll often get a line by a series of players, and then he'll add one other instrument to that line, as if he's pulling out another stop.
Right.
Other
Which could
composers-
possibly explain his repetition. He does things over and over, and it's like, well, let's just change, let's add that. Let's take away that.
And he improvised, and organists, this is a tradition with organists, this is improvisation, but very often if you look at the literature or any of the improvisations we have from the great improvisateurs, they did do this layering. There's a terracing that happens very often because you have the manuals, so you can be loud here and then you can terrace here, and you can terrace by adding stops. But for me, it's a completely different way of approaching creating an orchestral sound.
You literally just explained why I have 8 measures of rest, 2 beats rest, and then a half note C sharp, and then another 20 measures of rest.
Exactly.
And I'm like, oh, I'm just adding like a
You are
little drop
changing
of paint
a
into the
color.
texture.
And we almost don't want to hear that. It's more like we
Right.
feel it or sense it more than we really hear
Wow,
it.
that's so cool. Now
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah, well, that's what I find so fascinating about Bruckner, because there seems to be like some people that are very opinionated about Bruckner. Some people really don't like him or don't like
I
to
was
play
one.
his music.
I was one.
I mean, yeah, I remember being in college and I don't know, talking about composers we liked and didn't like, and some people, being like, oh, Bruckner, it's so unsophisticated, or there's this reputation of it just being like walls of sound, just big chords, and not having that same sort of nuance that like Brahms has or other
Right.
romantic composers at the time. But it's really interesting to talk about his music in a nuanced way, and that he was very knowledgeable about counterpoint, and he wrote choral music, and so
Yeah, he studied. I mean, he was well educated in music and studied
Yeah.
counterpoint all that young.
Yeah.
I agree. I never was really drawn to his music.
Yeah, and the critics let him know up until the 7th.
Yeah,
I read somewhere he was revising his 1st through 6th symphonies because he must have been checking the lack of likes on his Instagram or whatever at the time. And like literally, he was miserable with the hatred. There's one particular guy whose name I can't remember now, who literally eviscerated him after every symphony in the press. And then the 7th came, and everyone kind of woke up and said, wow. And that's he stopped revising then when he added the Wagner tubas.
Yeah,
How funny is
yeah.
that?
I think his life changed when he got that color, that he could
Yeah.
finally write for what he was hearing,
Right.
maybe more.
Yeah.
Is it possible, too, he wasn't writing for the masses anymore? He was writing for his friend, his idol, Wagner.
I think without a doubt, the
He had
adagio,
there was like a purpose in
he
this
had
piece.
something he had to express.
Right.
And you get that line. To me, that's after the there's a big climax.
Right.
And after the climax, I'll cry when I say it.
Yeah.
You play those, 4 bars.
Right.
And you are, to me, when he says, oh my God, I've lost him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's moments I think we're talking about letter X, I think. It's measure 190 is the
Yeah,
big coda.
that's the moment.
Yeah, they're playing their, I always feel like we're Alp horns. You're an Alp
Yeah.
horn and just kind of calling out to somewhere. And then the horns come in and go, he's dead, or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
And we just literally cry into the instrument. And interestingly enough, he doubles it with the 1st and 2nd horn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very fascinating. And it just holds and holds. And then we off to, what is it, concert D flat major to finish that out.
Yeah.
So,
It's interesting, even though I didn't have an emotional reaction over the years to Bruckner, particularly to choral music, maybe more. In putting this together, I was studying the score a couple days ago, and I realized I got to the end. Well, it wasn't. It was it was the last movement, and I was sort of speechless. I was kind of tearing up. I was wherever I was.
there's something about those pizzicati basses and then the traveling strings, see those little harmonies. And for him, he loves to bend, like we're in this key and in that key in an instant. So we actually have notes that say, it says G, it's a key signature with the G sharp in it. Then it says it's a G natural and then a G flat before you play the G flat, but it's like in one note.
In one-
It's like, so play the G natural flat. So I'm like,
Yeah.
so you just have to kind of get your eyes used to that. But traveling is his harmonic language. If I were to give one word, it just travels and it takes you with it's remarkable. And again, I couldn't stand Bruckner. Now, I performed Mahler 9 just a week ago, and that's a pretty scary piece. Lots of big solos and stuff, and it's like, might as well be a horn concerto, right? And I had that going through my veins, and then all of a sudden, I'm like, oh, I have Bruckner next week. I started peeking at that score before I played a note, walked on stage, and next thing I know, it's like the night before Mahler 9, I'm reading the score to Bruckner and just listening and just going, oh my God, this is coming. I can't wait.
It's infiltrated.
It just sticks to you. It sticks to your ribs. It really does. Something there.
I think it might be, it's hard to know on first hearing for people, it might be difficult to take in because it's architectural. That's not my word. Everyone says it's architectural. And I think people who aren't familiar with works sometimes are looking for things to grab onto, looking for melodies, and then melodies change and variations, and it kind of takes you through a piece of music. And my relationship with this music is that it's building blocks. And those building blocks sometimes can take, it seems like, an eternity.
Yeah.
But that's the beauty, and that, I think, is the kind of spiritualness of the faith, is this sense of the eternal moving somewhere. And it's that inner pulse. There is an inner pulse that drives, but as musicians, we have to feel that, and we hope that the audience feels that, because that's where it takes us in these long journeys. How is that to play? I mean, those are long chords. That's a long phrase that goes on and on. What's that like?
Well, I use an assistant, so
Yeah, so you don't understand.
there's another zero.
Explain that a little bit, that comment.
So principal in most orchestras, there's a position called assistant principal. It's an actual paid position, and that person comes and we call them the page turner. And honestly, I was a professional horn player for a hot minute. I was that guy. I got flown all around the world to come and essentially go, turn the page for someone, and then, play that whole note, play those 17 whole notes in a row, so that, because it's a very exhausting instrument, the French horn. I mean, that's a lot of metal on your face, especially in Bruckner and in Mahler. You are pumping out a lot of sound, and it's just good to kind of give the elbow to someone who can just take over so you can just get a breath. No.
Is it different? Tell me how it's different playing the two instruments for you as a musician.
Well, Wagner tuba, if there's one thing about being a Wagner tuba player, it's you're resting a lot.
Yeah.
It's funny because you're resting a lot, but when you're on, you're on. So it's difficult in its own way. It's not difficult in the same way of just like constant playing, being in like a horn section or a principal where you're just playing these chords for all four movements, and it's more of an endurance thing. The Wagner tuba is more, okay, I'm playing an instrument that I'm not as familiar with, and it's a big solo, and it's a big chorale, and it has to be in tune, and it has to be blended, and for the first movement, you're just sitting there.
Right.
And, I mean, it kind of depends on the piece. For this piece, it's just whoever is playing Wagner tuba is just playing the Wagner tuba. We're not doubling on horn, whereas there are other symphonies where the horn players, the extra horn players, double on Wagner tuba and French horn. So your lips, it's this really fine balance between you don't want to play too much and then be fatigued by the time you get to the tuba, but you also don't want to be totally fresh and cold going on the tuba either. So
What brought each of you to playing the French horn? What was your journey to getting to the horn?
I could tell.
I mean, I don't know who should go first,
You decide.
Yes. How much time do we have?
Right. Yeah.
In a nutshell.
I'll put this down.
I was growing up on the north side of Chicago. I went to a Catholic school, Our Lady of Perpetual Help, and they had the instrument demo. Actually, backing up to kindergarten, my neighbor, my sister's girlfriend, was a rock drummer, and I was obsessed with Grand Funk Railroad, and I wanted to just play, the drums, the set. And then comes this instrument demo, and this man named Don Telasco, who, funny enough, taught also at the local high school, Notre Dame High School, and it taught a jazz band with the members of it. It was called the Melodons, and the two of those members went on to create the super band Chicago of the 70s. Yeah, it's kind of a fun fact. So anyway, so Don Talaska was the guy who just, demonstrated the French horn, and I remember him going, "Oh, you can play it like it's far away." So he goes, "Bum, bum, bum, bum," and I'm like, "That's it. I got to do that." And that was it. I consulted my second grade teacher, Mrs. Brunton, who was, I'd been away. I must have seen her somewhere in a hallway or something. She goes, "I love the French horn," and that was it. I decided, and it's been my only instrument since.
Wow.
Yeah.
And how
It's
did
so
you
funny.
get to
I didn't know that about
Yeah.
you, and I feel like my story is kind of similar. I was in third grade. I was already pretty musical at the time. I was taking voice lessons. My parents are both musical. I already kind of knew how to read music, and actually, I kind of wanted to play violin or a string instrument when I was very young. But this was before the French horn, so I didn't know the French horn before that.
Right.
And then it was one day in general music class in third grade. My music teacher brought out the TV and put in the DVD that was a demonstration of all of the instruments. And it was it was funny because all the other kids in the class were like, "Oh, nap time, great!" They were like, "Oh, whenever the teacher brings out the TV, it's like, okay, we can all just take a nap." And I was probably one of the only people in the class that was awake, and I had like a notebook, and I was like ready to take notes on all the instrument and like pick my instrument. And I remember there were a few that stuck out to me. I really liked the oboe. I liked the cello. And then I saw the French horn, and it was like love at first sight. I really.
So was it physical, like just seeing the instrument?
I mean,
or?
I'm actually like, just as like a side thing, I am an artist too, and I also really always loved visual art. So there was something very visual about it. And I was like, "Oh, it looks cool. Check, check box."
Yeah, I
was like,
this. Wow.
"Oh, and it sounds cool." Like it just like checked all the boxes for me. And I remember after school, like running home and telling my parents, like, I'm going to spend the rest of my life recreating this sound. It was really the sound for me, but I also liked that it was visually very like cool looking instrument.
It's inspiring listening to the two of you, how music has really changed your lives and how it's been part of the path of your life.
Oh, it's like everything. It's like literally everything.
Yeah.
It's actually inescapable too. It's kind of like the mob.
It's one of those things that people that I would say normal people that have normal jobs really do not understand, because they see their job as something they do their work, they come home. Not everyone. I mean,
Right.
There are people that bring their work home, but for us, we don't really ever get a true day off. Like my parents are always like, oh, you just had, like all these days off, you must be so rested. I'm like, no,
Yeah.
I have this coming up. I'm, and that's something that I'm, obviously I advocate for musicians, getting compensated well, because people think, oh, it must be so easy. You get paid all this money to sit in a rehearsal for 2 hours. But we have to prepare for that rehearsal. We have to practice every day. I mean, I can't remember the last day I had where I wasn't practicing or studying music
Or thinking about it.
Sure.
Working through a passage in your brain.
Yeah.
And then like the crash after like a great concert, and then it's just like, it's gone. It's all gone, Well, you're at another level though, because she's on to the next thing. It's like, it's endless.
Yeah, I mean,
So-
there are times when it feels like, just at work, I'm performing, I'm doing my job
next
of
thing.
playing the notes and counting the rests. But then there are those, I would say this is one of those special performances where you get that adrenaline rush. And
We are so
Definitely.
lucky
Yeah.
to have you with us.
Yes.
Where do you think this is all going to fit into the future of music in general and education? I mean, we're in such curious times, and the arts right now are not really put forth, and we have, I don't want to say all negative things, but we have a couple generations now where they have not been exposed to music in the public schools and maybe in the other schools. How do you think this all comes out? Do we become like a museum form, like an art form that's only for specialized interest? It was certainly we're not in Europe in a time where everyone lived for going to the opera and everybody went to the opera and knew operas and everybody knew symphonies. It's such a curious time, and I'm talking about our culture. It's different in different places, but how do you see yourself in the midst of it, and how do you see us as musicians moving forward with an art form that we really love? Big question, I know.
That's a big question. I need to take a sip of water.
Well, I will say, I have some private students who are already saying, is AI going to replace me? Why would I want to be a French horn player? And it will. I think evolution is kind of a nice thing, because there's one thing that's undeniable, that there's a spirituality and a draw to expression. And the way someone shares it, like she's drawing, she's an artist, she does other things, and there's always someone who's going, wow, that's cool. Oh, oh, wait, stop, look at that. That's amazing.
Well, it's ultimately human.
Right. Sure, AI is going to do this and replicate this and that, but there's going to be something that can always pull us in. And if there's one thing that everyone craves universally, is a good story. And the most amazing thing is, even in this hour, I feel like we've created something. And there's a good story waiting to happen in literally everything. I've taught for many, many years. I teach many families, and every student I teach has an incredible story. And it's not always the story you think. Sometimes it's the story of our relationship. Sometimes, I've left families with kids crying, and moms crying, like, how do I raise my kid, or whatever, And I think everyone wants to have that purpose and see where they are in this universe. And I think if we can just have a story to take us along the way, business is very good right now, if you ask me. Maybe not monetarily, but I think we are a very healthy society. I think we're still ultimately human beings in need of something. And
you think it's
like
that
Jessica
desire to find that something that will draw people back to the arts?
Yeah, I don't think we're losing them. You could say tickets and this and that, but someone's always got their head plugged in. We always say, oh, those kids are disconnected. Well, maybe they're more connected. Maybe they're more connected to a world that's somewhere out there, and it's some digital guy in Topeka, Kansas, that's just got his own little, 2-octave keyboard, and he's coming up with all these different little things and rapping over it or anything. And he's getting that expression out, and he's got 7 million YouTubers following him, something like that.
It's a very positive view. I like that view, the idea. I do think that creativity is a basic drive of being human, self-expression, and also trying to see how you fit in to all of what all this is.
In reception, right? Reception is always the audience is the most important part of the. It starts with the composer, it goes to the instrumentalist, it goes to the conductor's interpretation, it goes out to the orchestra that practices and works hard, and then it's all up here. Not that we need the standing ovation, it's nice, but for them to receive that's closure. That's like from the germ of an idea to the reception. There's nothing like it. Talk about a ring cycle, right? It's golden.
I guess a story never is real until it's told.
Sure.
So it has to be in the public, right? That has to be part of that process.
Sure.
If it's only in your head, then it's not there. And AI is interesting. It's interesting to know how it's going to affect all of our functions in life. But I agree. I think things move forward, not back. Technology will move forward. I think it'll infiltrate in some ways the arts. It already has. I've used AI putting together my work and stuff.
Sure.
And I think a lot of us are. I think it can be creative in some ways. It's going to be a particular type of creativity that's like a conglomerate, perhaps, creativity.
Right. Oh,
it's
sure.
human-based if the subsets are coming from human experience, Doesn't make it really human. So it can be a fascinating time, but I think it can also be a scary time, and it'll be interesting to see how we traverse it. And the reality is, playing a musical instrument takes years and years and years, and is a tremendous commitment. And will we continue to be a society where people will invest that time and energy for that long haul in some ways? Will people who can hear quick bites on their phone and watch TikTok, will they sit through an hour symphony?
Right.
Will they want to? What will motivate them?
Right.
I think you're right. I think it's the story. Hopefully what we want to say out is there's a story here that you should hear. It's a story that might relate to you, that can change your life or maybe give you a different vision. But that's, things change so quickly in our world, and I think it can be almost disorienting knowing which direction we're really going in, because we're going in so many directions so quickly because of technology.
Sure.
Yeah, I think there's something really special about the community aspect of a performance. Everyone is focused on one thing. Everyone is, without obviously, hopefully without their phones, focused on this one thing, and it's a special occasion going to a symphony concert or an opera. And if anything, I mean, what I'm seeing in my generation and the younger generation is almost this pushback, because we're seeing AI and technology. It's like being very forced upon us. So
How many boos are at the commencement ceremonies all
Say more
across
about
the
that. That's
Yes.
interesting. You feel it's being forced on you. And
Yeah, I mean, in some
ways.
ways it's becoming very inescapable. You can choose to for example, you can choose to not use ChatGPT. But if you Google something, the first thing that comes up is the AI summary.
Right.
And what you just brought up, all of the commencement ceremonies we've been seeing of
Right.
these, but we really have to think who benefits from AI. It's really the wealthy billionaires that are really benefiting from it. It's not
We went
helpful
there.
for,
We went there. Let's talk politics.
But it is a tool. I think it can be a tool that can be helpful. You think?
Yeah. I think that it can be, if it's being used for, you do hear stories of it being used in science and medicine and advancing medicine, and but for the arts, it's it's just kind of, I've been seeing this kind of refreshing pushback from it seems like my generation, younger generation, where technology and AI is being forced so much on us that it's refreshing for us to read a book, go to the symphony.
Sure.
This is encouraging to hear.
And I hear stories all the time of younger. It's almost becoming cool for young people to have a flip phone or.
I was just going to say the analog market.
Yeah. So I think it's really interesting that I think people do at the end of the day want this connection. We want connection.
Authentic
We
connection.
want community. We want to kind of be reconnected with nature. So yeah, I mean, that's my opinion about
That's
about-
wonderful. And I do think that music of all sorts gives you an opportunity to connect in a human way. And especially, coming kind of back circle to Bruckner, here we have a fully human experience. We've got, 50, 60 some odd musicians who are expressing themselves together, who are making a statement together. And you can experience that by being in the room. We experience it by being in the orchestra. It's a fully human experience. And then we take a piece where this is a person who was very quirky and sort of an odd character, it seems, with Bruckner, but he suffered great loss. And the one way he could express it, maybe the only way, was to write this piece. Mm-hmm. And here, the piece was 1888? Here we are able to to see that journey.
Sure.
Maybe to learn from that journey or at least experience it in some way. It's an extraordinary opportunity in some ways that we take for granted because
I was
think
just gonna say, we
we're
take
so
for granted.
surrounded by music.
Sure, we crack open the time capsule every time we take our instrument out. It's kind of crazy. We tell a story that's hundreds of years old, and we have the opportunity to tell a story of some kid right down the block who just wrote something new. It just came up, and that's a gift.
I am so grateful the two of you are part of this. I'm so grateful you would take time today to share your experiences and really talk to us. I'm so excited about doing this
Oh,
piece.
this is going to be great. The whole
Yeah.
section's excited.
Wow.
So I had the second horn player over earlier today, and I'm like, I go, I'm going to cry during this. And she's like, I already am.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
thank you
thank
so
you.
much. Yeah, thank you so
Thank you.
much. And yeah.
Yes, so
Yeah.
this performance is on Saturday evening, August 1st at 7 o'clock here at the Unitarian Universalist Congregation at Shelter Rock. Please register if you plan on coming online because we will probably have a pretty big house, and so we want to guarantee that you can get a good seat. Thank you, and I'll see you Wednesday when we dig into a little Bruckner.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. This is the beginning of the second movement of Bruckner 7, and it starts with a Wagner tuba chorale. So I'll play a little bit. So that motif, that chorale repeats a few times during the movement. And then we have this other chorale moment right in, as we were talking about during the interview, during this climactic moment in the second movement where we believe that's the moment when Bruckner found out that Wagner had passed. So it's very somber and dramatic. Sorry. Yeah, and then it keeps going. I might have slowed down a little too much there.